By now, the concept of a Souls-like in gaming shouldn't really be news in the community after developer FromSoftware pioneered the entire subgenre. However, one title from the team that left fans hungry for more and hoping for a sequel, or at least a next-gen FPS patch, was Bloodborne, which was released now almost 8 years ago. Although FromSoftware has left us in the dark regarding Bloodborne, Korean indie developer NeoWiz is about to take the world by storm with the next best thing, Lies of P. Before we get into the review, we'd like to thank our Patreon supporters for making this possible. Please take a second to check out patreon.com/noisypixel to support independent game journalism. Set in the fictional city of Krat, Lies of P is a dark reimagining of Pinocchio's story, with you playing the iconic marionette himself. Familiar figures such as Mr. Geppetto and Jiminy Cricket, named Gemini Cricket in this case, make an appearance along with a cast of brand new original characters. The game even has its own maiden equivalent in this title, named Sophia, who also seems to represent the blue fairy from the original story of Pinocchio. However, something fishy is going on in Krat. The streets are void of townsfolk, only to be littered by mechanical animatronics. The game's narrative takes an interesting approach to humanity and explores the different themes between being human and being a puppet. You see, puppets cannot lie, but those rules don't bind you because Geppetto created you differently. After all, we all know that the real Pinocchio loves to lie. Many times throughout the game, you are tasked with the decision to either tell the truth or a lie, and each choice will have different outcomes, consequences, and even endings. Do you become a real boy in the end? Well, that's for you to decide. The game's horror undertones, gloomy atmosphere, and gothic architecture may remind you of Bloodborne, but this time in crisp 4K graphics and smooth 60 frames per second. The Souls equivalent in this title is called Ergo. Flasks are called pulse cells, and bonfires are stargazers. The game looks downright the same as a Souls game from the top to bottom, including the entire UI design and HUD. It's astonishing how similar Lies of P is compared to its inspirations, so much so that I would say it wears them proudly on its sleeve. If you told me this game was an entirely new game from FromSoftware, I'd probably believe you. So props to NeoWiz for crafting such an immersive world. Alright, enough about the story and what the game reminds me of, because everyone is really here to know one thing. Is it any good? If it wasn't clear already, Lies of P is a Souls-like title to its very core, featuring hard-as-nail third-person action-heavy combat. For the most part, yes, the game is great, as weapons feel impactful, level design is intricate, exploration is rewarding, and boss encounters are thrilling. The game takes cues from several FromSoftware titles to create something of its own, all while giving you access to your own prosthetic arm called Legion, to which you can attach various tools such as a shield or flamethrower. There's also an extreme emphasis on perfect blocking attacks, and all weapons contain distinctive weapon arts called Fable Arts. There are no armor slots to dress Pinocchio in, but you obtain several costumes for him to change his look cosmetically. Aside from the traditional leveling up stats in Vigor, Vitality, etc., the other main mechanics is the P-Organ, which lets you unlock passive abilities in a skill tree at the cost of quartz. This rare material can be found from elite mini-boss enemies or given to you as part of natural story progression. Skills in the P-Organ include increasing your pulse cell size, adding an extra amulet slot, or gaining an extra Legion arm. Further into the game, you are introduced to the Cube and Gold Coin Fruit, which act as other tools to aid you in combat. The Gold Coin Fruit accumulates on a tree in real time, like a gacha game, and you can use it in exchange for various wish stones to attach to your cube. Wish stones come in many different colors, some healing you over time, or others buffing your Spectre, Helper, in boss fights. What surprised me the most is the extensive weaponry that can be found, or exchanged for using boss souls. In my playthrough alone, I found upwards of 30 weapons, and there's probably even more that I haven't found. From your generic swords and daggers all the way to giant saw blades and military shovels, this game truly has it all. The weapon assembly mechanic is even more impressive, which allows you to detach weapon blades and handles to make different combinations. This will enable you to build a custom weapon based on a blade you like and a handle that scales to the main attribute you are dumping skill points into, so there's no worries if you specialize in dexterity and want to try out a strength weapon. Level design is pretty straightforward for any Souls-like game. Various shortcuts can be unlocked that lead back to a checkpoint, enemies hide behind corners to ambush you unexpectedly, treasure chests and items are tucked away in various alleys that stray from the main path. From time to time, expect to see rolling fireballs coming your way or a collapsing bridge, among other environmental hazards. I had a great time traversing various environments, soaking in the immaculate atmosphere and exploring every nook and cranny there is. But the actual combat is where the experience starts to fall apart, as the developers have implemented some highly questionable design choices. As a refresher, combat is stamina based, and you have a light and heavy attack. Lies of P also has a weapon durability system, and weapons can break during combat unless you sharpen them. For starters, there's no typical parry mechanic. Depending on your weapon, you might have the Fable art that allows you to parry incoming attacks. However, this comes at the cost of one Fable, which acts as a mana bar. Parrying itself is already a difficult maneuver, but having to waste precious mana just to attempt it is pretty lame. On the other hand, the dodge is probably one of the most frustratingly implemented mechanic in this game. If you lock onto an enemy, you are physically incapable of dodge rolling away unless you press the button twice. Not only does this not work half the time, but it also wastes so much stamina. This is because the game forces you to sidestep to one side or another if you are targeting an enemy. Only when you remove your lock-on can you dodge roll freely. The strafing provides little to no invincibility frames and doesn't give you nearly enough space or distance from the enemy. Perhaps my biggest gripe and critique with this game's combat is how spongy and cheap many enemies and bosses feel. Look, I already know you're gonna say just get good, but hear me out. The TLDR is, you do peanut damage even if you max out a weapon and grind for levels, and they kill you in 2 to 3 hits. The game doesn't reward you for playing well. Instead, it punishes you for playing normally. This is entirely against the FromSoftware rules of the Souls-like genre because they are all hard, but they're fair. Lies of P takes the difficulty up to an unnecessary amount, and sometimes fights can be dragged on for tens of minutes, even if you play perfectly, because that's just how the game was balanced. Because of the lack of a reliable parry mechanic and the terrible dodging system, you only have the block button. A regular block eats away some of your health and stamina, but you can regain some of it if you attack immediately, like Bloodborne. However, if you perfectly block an enemy's attack, you take no damage, and instead you build up an invincibility stagger on the enemy. It is extremely difficult to perfectly block all the boss's attacks, especially ones that just bombard you with a flurry of swings. Once an enemy is staggered, a white bar appears over their health, signaling you to perform a heavy charge attack. And only if you land this charge attack do they tilt over and become susceptible to some hits, known as fatal attacks. In theory, this system is fine, but because how unnecessarily aggressive enemies are and how easily they can stun lock you, you will likely miss your window of opportunity to even get in a charge attack on them before their stagger meter goes back down. Don't even get me started on how many times that an enemy can stun lock you to death. Their attacks stagger you and bring you down with one hit, but before you can recover, they charge up another one to kill you. This is beyond frustrating because you can do nothing to prevent this. Even if you manage to bring the enemy down for a fatal attack, sometimes your inputs won't be registered because of the frames that aren't accurate, rendering your attempt a failure. Let's be real here. There's little to no accessibility with Lies of P. In fact, I suspect most players won't even make it to the end of the game, given its insane difficulty curve, even if they are Souls veterans. Get ready to see the lie or death screen many times through your playthrough. There are so many moments throughout my time playing that I felt like giving up due to how challenging some of the bosses were, but those who come out triumphant will surely enjoy the spoils of war that this game offers. One playthrough took me around 27 hours to complete, and the game features New Game Plus for you to make different decisions, see different endings, and snag up the other items and weapons you missed your first time through Krat. From the moment you set your eyes on the game, you can already tell that Lies of P looks gorgeous. The Victorian-era environments, buildings, sceneries, and excellent facial animations make for an impressive visual feat. The game's art style and aesthetics are meticulously crafted to immerse players in a world shrouded in mystery and intrigue. Sound design also plays a crucial role in setting up the game's mood. The beautiful soundtrack, especially the song Feels, enhances the overall experience and adds to the sense of immersion. You can even listen to the various records you collect back at Hotel Krat, which is an excellent little detail. On the PlayStation 5, Lies of P performs brilliantly, with quick load times and buttery smooth frame rates. I've encountered no bugs, glitches, or other technical problems that might have hindered my overall experience. The game offers a performance and graphics mode, but I'd recommend opting for higher frame rates due to the sheer nature of this title. Lies of P treats players to a meticulously designed Souls-like experience that challenges their skills and immerses them in a world of atmospheric intrigue. With its stunning visuals, twisted narrative, and excellent technical performance, Lies of P would be a must-play for any fan of FromSoftware's difficult titles. However, the frustrating combat mechanics revolving around the dodge system and some of the unbalanced battles prevent me from fully recommending this experience to everyone. NoiseyPixel is giving Lies of P a 7.5 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. NoiseyPixel is run by Kirby Gamers, providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth, and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
NoiseyPixel.